All right, we are on chapter 21. Last thing that happened on chapter 20 was Gerda and Fritz were walking away, and she was just getting really excited because Fritz was planning on still digging the tunnel. All right, chapter 21. Our progress over the next few days was dreadfully slow. The large clumps of dirt turned into even larger rocks that seemed as impassable as the Berlin Wall itself. Fritz and I spent hours chipping at the edges to pull the rock out, but too often that just led to finding other rocks in our way. Fritz stood back and examined the dirt wall. If this is how the rest of tunneling will be, we might as well give up. Let's turn sideways and go around it. I brushed my sweaty hair out of my face. It can't be all rock under here. What if it is? It could take months. Then let it take months, I said. At least we're still moving forward. I don't have months, Fritz said. It's just weeks until they'll expect me for military duty. I was ready to keep arguing, but he only picked up the shovel again. So there's really no time for complaining, eh? He was the one who'd complained, not me, and besides, I was still feeling the surge of energy from our brief argument. I used it to pry my fingers into the dirt and yank out one of the larger rocks. Dirt tumbled over my shoulders when it fell, but I only smiled. I felt better now. I should make you angry more often, he teased. Help me carry this rock up, then I've got some work to do above. Earlier that morning, Fritz had removed the hinges from a closet door in our apartment. While I screw these on the wood boards over the window, maybe you can use the rocks to build us a stairway, he said. That way, it's not such a climb for you to get out. I did as he suggested, but spent most of that time thinking about how lucky I was to have Fritz here. He was resourceful and good with his hands. So good, in fact, that I sometimes felt like a useless child getting in his way. Sure, I helped him dig and carried buckets of dirt into the basement, and every night I was just as tired as he was when we stumbled back to the apartment. But I had also begun to appreciate how hard this tunnel project was, how much bigger than what I had first imagined. On one of those walks home, we stopped on the street by Frau Eberhardt, who patrolled the front of our apartment building better than most of the guards in the watchtowers. She saw the dirt on our hands and faces and waddled over to us. I looked up at Fritz. Remember, Frau Eberhardt thinks we've been gardening. Gardening what? He asked. I didn't answer because Frau Eberhardt was upon us then, and he could only smile politely at her. What a pleasure to see the two Low children. If she felt any pleasure, it was in watching us squirm. I can tell you've been busy. Her eyes flickered from me up to Fritz. I wasn't sure which of us were dirtier. We hadn't taken the time to wash off in the pond before leaving tonight. Fritz worried if we did that too often, it would stand out to the guards. Maybe that was a mistake, though, because sure as anything, we stood out now. We might as well have past signs on our chest announcing our plans. We have been busy, I said, a bit too defensively, and we're late for supper, so if you'll excuse us. Late for whose supper? Frau Eberhardt asked. Your mother isn't there to prepare it. Where has she been? I miss visiting with her. She didn't miss visiting with Mama because my mother avoided her like she'd dodge a black cat sitting on a crack in the sidewalk. And this woman, was far unluckier than my old wives' tale. Our mother is helping our grandmother recover from an injury, Fritz said. We expect her back very soon. Maybe tonight, I offered, which is why it would be rude to be late. Even as the words fell from my mouth, I could have kicked myself for saying them. Why use such a stupid lie to remind her that I had already tried to lie before? Fritz covered for me. Gerda means that we are hungry and we need to get some supper. We wish our mother was home to share it with us, but if she isn't, we expect her soon. Let's hope so. Frau Eberhardt pierced her lips and began examining us again. It's not wise to allow young people too much time on their own. Children will get into trouble. I'm not a child anymore, Fritz said. By the end of this month, I'll join the military. Oh, and how will you fill your time until then? I heard you're not working as a bricklayer anymore. Gardening, I said. You know, that garden I told you about. We've been working on it. Hmm, where is it? Frau Eberhard asked. I used to love to garden, and I would love to come by and give you some advice. We'll take you there sometime. I took Fritz's arm and started to walk forward with him. Thanks for your help, Frau Eberhardt. We'd better go now. Once we were inside, Fritz stared down at me and shook his head. Even before he spoke, I understood his concern. Frau Eberhardt wouldn't go away, and she would expect to see evidence of a garden. We haven't pulled a single weed, Fritz said. Nor do we have permission to garden there or any tools or seeds to get started. This is a huge problem, Gerda. I agreed completely, but after another long day of digging and pulling out rocks, my brain felt as rubbery as my arms and legs. We were running out of food in the apartment. That was okay too. As tired as I was, I didn't feel all that hungry anyway. I barely took enough time to wash off before I fell onto my bed, already asleep as my head hit the pillow.